So our journey with the 10 Keys and with Action for Happiness started 3 years ago, when I was looking for a program or an approach to use with the children that had a focus on well-being, that gave them tools, but was not completely prescriptive. Children, like adults, we're all different. And so having 10 keys, as opposed to one approach to finding happiness and beginning that conversation about well-being, was the first thing that drew me to Action for Happiness. Embedding the program within the school and embedding the approach of using the keys for staff ran in parallel. We had, as we say, we had a whole day of training with yourselves, and every member of my staff team attended. And that was vital. In previous years, we had looked at other initiatives. A small group of teachers or TAs and teachers had taken the training. We had not been able to embed the approach. So the 10 keys and working with you was a significant change for us, because all members of the team were involved in the training. And in that first year, as we introduced one of the keys, and we basically took a whole year to introduce all 10 keys, approximately fortnightly in our PSHE lessons. So we had 1 week that we introduced it through assembly and in the lesson, and a second week where we reinforced it and revisited it. Teachers themselves and TAs themselves were working through the teacher's handbook and thinking how it applied to themselves. So we ran in parallel. There was no pre-preparation. We very much hit the ground running for staff and pupils all at the same time. And key to that was the fact that we took parents with us. So this has been a whole school journey. And I report regularly to parents through my weekly newsletter on which element of the key we've been looking at, what our focus has been, that language is shared with parents. So in the first year, our PSHE lessons were devoted on the whole to the 10 keys. Weekly assemblies likewise were devoted to the key. So I would introduce a key in a Monday morning assembly, and that's then reinforced through the PSHE lesson that week and the following week, reported to parents in my newsletter. That then went through the whole of the first year of using the toolkit, and our end of year show was the 10 keys to happier living, and each class made a presentation on one of the keys, and our house captains spoke on the missing 3 keys, so that all 10 were represented, and that included a song written for us by our music teacher. That was year 1. In year 2, we had the keys on display. I've got them all here. Every classroom has this display of 10 keys. They're 10 large keys with the name of the key in it, and each member of staff has them in a small size on our lanyards. So as we introduced a key, it went up on the wall with a peg with a smile, so you know which is your focus for the week. And that also was then paralleled in the number of keys I had on my lanyard. Really interesting way of engaging the very youngest children, because they could see there was a different colour and another key. What was it? So year 2 was very much about embedding, and assemblies in that first term were around people who changed the world. And we linked that to the 10 keys by my asking, which of the keys did this particular person have to use? When we had to close the school because of COVID, as we hit lockdown, we actually had a week and a half left of school. And so what I did every day for 2 weeks was I sent a daily email, said from the desk of Mrs. Gaffin, and it was something around a key. It was a piece of learning on the key, a challenge around the key. Maybe it was make a cake or do a word search or go on a nature walk. But each day of the week for 2 weeks, And I think we all thought at that time lockdown was going to be for 2 or 3 weeks. They had something that was key related. I think part of the work with embedding the keys is not just that there are 10 keys, but I think it's very powerful in giving us a vocabulary, a language to express how we're feeling. So I'm not sure if you asked each of my children to give you details about the key, that they would be able to give you chapter and verse. But if you ask them about how they're feeling and what they can do to alter that into a positive way, they would tell you they use the keys. That was year 2. This has been year 3. And in our first term back in September, again, we visited every one of the keys in every year group from reception to year 6, 1 a week across 10 weeks. For our youngest children, that was the introduction. But for everybody else, it was reinforcing it. And in every year group, as well as having these keys on the wall, they chose a focus for a display. And we had that up in the corridors so that the keys are everywhere. I also gave them a large outline of a key, and the instruction was to put your name here and then fill up the key with ideas of things you could do to alter when you're having what I call a thumbs down day into a thumbs up day. And I've just got one other thing to add actually on that, in terms of one of the other elements that we have introduced that again has been able to, I think, extend the work that we're doing and extend the message and increase involvement of family, because it's got to be embedded family wise, not just school wise. And that is through our choice of storybooks. So that we found, I take the little ones for PSHE. So every week in line with a key, I found a storybook. Then I sent that recommendation home to parents so that they could reinforce that at home. Yes, so anecdotal evidence would be through interactions that I have with children. So maybe a child who's feeling unhappy and they have come to me at a break time or a lunchtime. They might even have come out of a lesson to see me. I am pastoral lead within the school and my door is always open to the children, and they could come in and either they could, if it's a young child, they'd be brought by an adult, or if it's an older child, they might come themselves to see me. And we structure our conversation around what could be bothering them. Sometimes they can verbalize it, sometimes they can't. But then we use the language of the keys around what can I do to help myself from now going forwards. And look through the keys, they're always on display on my office. And as I say, I have these blank outlines of keys. Across the room from where I'm sitting now, I've got one on the wall from a little girl I've been working with, and on there she's written her name and started to colour it in, and I've jotted down examples of things that we could do, that she can do in that moment where she's not feeling so happy. But I had a little boy who had been unhappy. We did this similar process with him, and when I checked in with him the next day, he was okay. He had his key in his tray. He took it out to show me. He said, yes, I've done this. No, I haven't done this. And then after a few days of checking in with him, when I went to say, are you all right? He said, yes, I'm all right. I've got my key. So I think that's very powerful. Yeah. And I think also, anecdotally, I can tell you that different children use different keys. And again, that's something that as a school, we could have something which is a whole school approach. It's called the 10 keys, but there's lots of opportunity for individuality. Nobody has to do the same thing as somebody else. If going for a rainbow walk helps you to focus on the colours and brings you to a better place, then you can do that. If some breathing helps you, you can do that. If going out into the playground and approaching another child to see what you can do for them helps you, then you can do that. So again, I think the 10 keys gives us one whole school approach to well-being, but lots of different things that we can do within it. It's not like a child can ever say, that just doesn't work for me. Maybe that key doesn't work for you, use a different key. I think that I've been very fortunate in the process of embedding the 10 keys into the school, because we are a relatively new school. I joined the school when it was 5 terms old, and I've built it year on year and recruited staff to positions of teachers and teaching assistants and administration positions who want to work in the way that I work. And so it's an absolute blessing. I haven't had the person who's always been here and we've never done it in that way as an obstacle to our work. So I don't think that I'm necessarily in the same position as many head teachers in terms of bringing something new in and trying to embed it. I do think that the program itself is helpful, because it's not even a program. I do think the approach itself is helpful, because everybody can find something within the 10 keys that they relate to, that they feel comfortable with. In the same way that I've mentioned that for the children, that is exactly the same for the staff. We have a well-being walk on a Tuesday morning. We come into school, we take the register, we put on Wellington boots, and we walk around the campus from reception to year 6. What I've noticed in the last weeks, since we came back to school after the January to March lockdown, is the number of teachers that go out for a walk at lunchtime. I haven't had a huge number of obstacles, but I think I've been extremely fortunate. But I would say to anybody else, don't think that because you've got people who are not immediately on board that you shouldn't try it. By the way, in terms of being on board, my librarian now selects books when he's buying books. He's looking for titles that fit with the keys. Okay, we've got a music teacher who wrote a song, The Great Dream, for the 10 keys. We're using it in our PSHE. We're using it in our history. We're using it across the piece. It's definitely a whole school approach. I would say to other head teachers and pastoral leads who are considering whether the 10 keys to happy living is a suitable approach to take into your school, I would absolutely say yes. You're different to me, I'm different to you, but there are 10 keys. And within each of those keys, there are different things that you can do. So you can personalize each key to your personality, to the individual situation that you are in. You can roll it out within different time scales. So it's not like you've got to do it all within one term or it won't work. Take it slowly and gradually. You must take people with you. It's a whole school journey. If it's just one person using the language, you cannot have the same impact. And I would say that the 10 keys have certainly brought me happiness and continue to bring me happiness. That doesn't mean I'm always happy, because we have good days and bad days. We can't avoid the bad days, but knowing that there are keys that I can use help me personally and within my school. And I would say to anybody thinking about embarking on this journey, take your first steps. Take the support that's out there through Action for Happiness. Approach me. I'm very happy to get involved and help and support. It's really powerful. And there is nobody who can't access the approach.